Now, from Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. This is Sports Daily with Jacob Albrecht and Tommy Kester.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday to you. You ready for round two of this snow? I'm sure not. I'm ready for the spring. Actually, I'm ready for the summer, if we're being perfectly honest. Jacob Albrecht, Tommy Kester with you on this Thursday. Big show for you on Sports Daily today. Get excited. Get ready. We'll talk about KU last night, tale of two halves for sure. A lot of takeaways, I think, from that game that we'll get into. We also get the start of the CFP tonight and into tomorrow. We will have PJ Glasser, our betting insider. He'll join us to talk about those games. We will give you some picks. We'll kind of preview those a little bit as well. And, of course, we'll get ready for the NFL playoff weekend with PJ as well. Tim Fitzgerald, our KState Insider, also joining us in this program. Looking forward to that conversation about K-State hoops. Where do things stand? What can be done? Where it all is headed for K-State. We'll do it all. I'm Jacob Albrecht alongside Tommy Kester. Tommy, good morning. How are you?
You ever just like groan and you see the forecast?
Yeah.
You're like, man, I want it to warm up. And we've only had like one cold snap and one big winter storm so far. That's one too many. I'm over it. I don't want another one, but it looks like that's what we're going to have.
Yeah, I always laugh when people are like, oh, I love having all 4 seasons and, it's really great. And I'm like, oh, really? Let's talk after the first time you wake up and you get punched in the mouth or, whatever it is by the weather. This one has been particularly bad. It's been a bad combination, I will admit. Normally, it's not like this. And even tonight or this afternoon, as we're supposed to get just a little bit more snow, at least it's not followed by like 0-degree temperatures like we've had. So hopefully we'll get it melted. If there is ice, maybe this snow will just give us a little traction. We'll go glass half full on it. But yeah, I'm certainly already over it. I was over it before it ever started. I'm not a winter guy. I don't like it. I don't need it in my life. Like, it doesn't do anything for me. I'd like to see the snow if I'm skiing, and that's about it. There may have been a time in my life where snow was fun and cute and everything else like it is for my kids. That time has passed. It's nothing but a pain in the butt now, and it's a nuisance.
I'm okay with it, like when it's happening. Like, I like watching it out the window. I mean, of course, like a freshly, snow-filled yard. You see
it's great.
The beautiful snow. What I hate, though, is as soon as it gets like that dirty, like you've got the piles of dirty, nasty, half melted, half ice. It's terrible to look at. It's not fun to drive in. You don't like walking in it. All my shoes are dirty. I don't understand. Like, once it actually happens, once it's all done, then I'm like, I'm over it. I hate it. I don't want to have it happen again.
I'll tell you, the best snow is when you get snow and it's melting or melted the next day. That snow I'm on board with, because there is the old country boy in me that's like, you take moisture any way you can get it. But now city slicker, as I, don't live that life anymore. It's like, yeah, but the roads get treacherous and people wreck their cars. And it's really hard to, run a business that's kind of dependent on the sunshine when it's snowing outside. And
I got a brand new pair of shoes, a brand new pair of dress shoes for Christmas. And I broke them in yesterday, which was the worst time to do that because there's no traction on the bottom of them at all. And, so I'm ice skating all throughout the parking lot walking in. I'm like, this is a broken leg waiting to happen.
You can't do that. I had this conversation with my oldest daughter the last 2 days. She got some new shoes that she really wants to wear back to school. Of course, they're going back. And I'm like, you can't do that. Like, you're going to destroy them on day one if you take them out in the snow. Yeah. Finally caved today. She's going for it. And I assume that's the same kind of conversation with you and your wife. But honey, they're my new shoes. I want everybody to see my new shoes.
Right.
You might need to wait a couple of days. I can't wait anymore. I got to show them my new shoes.
I don't care if you're 9 years old or 40. You get a new pair of shoes, you want to show those bad boys off, whether you're at school or you're at work.
If you're a grown man and you don't care about new shoes, that's what I'm talking about. New shoes. No, I'd leave all the new shoes to my wife and kids. I like new shoes too, but yeah. Anywho, stay safe out there, everybody. Hopefully this round is a less destructive round and just gets us some pretty snow that'll melt real quick and we'll get warm and we'll be good to go and ready to roll. It is the winter time after all. It is January 9th. It is the time we start to look at college basketball far more closely, really start to dig in. We've got football postseason beginning. So we're kind of in that crossover, that transition period to where things will go full steam ahead with college basketball. Right now, Tommy, the one team that we watch and wonder about the postseason and bigger picture things, it's KU. We're not getting that out of Wichita State and K-State right now, but we are getting it out of KU, and they are a fascinating team. They win last night. They don't look good in the first half. They look great in the second half. I never thought of this team as being sort of a Jekyll and Hyde type team, but we've kind of seen that lately, at least, right? We've seen them. They played really well for a game against, really poorly for a game against West Virginia. Then they played their best game against UCF. And then yesterday, we get kind of each in each half. But I think, and we will, as we make our way through this first hour, talk a lot about that game and what it means big picture, because I think we saw a lot of little things within that game that kind of we've been talking about all year. It was a really interesting game last night.
Yeah, it was. And when you looked at the halftime score, and especially the very, very tail end of the first half, it wasn't good for the Jayhawks. There were a couple questionable calls that, ultimately led Arizona State to having a 6-point lead at halftime. And you're like, man, like this looks like rinse and repeat for the Jayhawks when you've got an opponent that comes into Allen Fieldhouse, looks like a carbon copy of, potentially what happened to them against West Virginia in their conference opener. But then out of the half, I mean, they were able to actually make those adjustments that were necessary. The offense started to click. The shots started to fall at a higher percentage than what they saw in the first half. And it kind of became, sort of a comfortable victory for the Jayhawks. And I think that's important and meaningful because Arizona State, as we talked about yesterday, is no slouch in opponent.
No, they've got some really talented players.
They're around the 50 mark in the net. They basically, Kansas, they were able to overcome what ailed them in the first half and cruise to a fairly comfortable victory. And so I think that that's really important for Kansas moving forward.
It is. What concerned me is Quaintance, his 17-year-old, looked great in the first half, and he was giving them fits. I didn't like that. The other thing is about Arizona State, and I didn't really realize this until we were kind of making our way through the game, they were missing their second leading scorer. So, that was another thing where like, ugh, like at home, this is weird. Like it shouldn't be happening. And the things that you were seeing in the first half were the things I think that you worry about big picture with this team. And then in the second half, that's what they're capable of. It was, and we'll get into this in the next segment because we'll take a break here in just a second. But I almost, this is your thing, but I almost did it just for fun. The jinx, the early jinx. I almost texted you yesterday when you said you weren't worried about KU at halftime and said, still not worried. But I was like, no, they're going to be fine in the second half. I have a sneaky suspicion. And they were. I do think, though, there are things we've got to dig through. And I think the best thing is that we saw the adjustment at halftime take that immediate effect, right? But there are things in the first half that will destroy them in meaningful games this year or in the NCAA tournament that they've got to figure out how to avoid those stretches. Because I don't think it's just, they got cold for a little bit, which is, of course, possible to happen to anybody. I do think there were like bigger picture, longer term symptomatic problems of what we were seeing in the first half. And again, glad to see him adjust. So let's dig into that when we return. The KFH hotline's open for you at 869-1240. You can also leave us your video comments on Facebook, on YouTube, on X. Thanks to Prairie Fire Coffee for keeping us fueled up here at KFH each and every morning. More KU talk next.
66 counties, 4 regions, and 1 weather team that you can trust. Find Storm Team 12 every weekday at 5:30 on the KSCW. Whatever the weather and wherever you are, Storm Team 12 is zooming in, going zone by zone to give you a more in-depth look at the forecast and some science behind the storms so you know more. We're focusing on the forecast so you can focus on what's important to you. Storm Team 12 Weather Focus, 5:30 on the KSCW.
The future of television has arrived. Next Gen TV is here with stunning video, movie theater quality sound, enhanced voice clarity, and interactive features, all upgradable for the future. Learn more at watchnextgentv.com.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. but let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With 20 plus flavors of sweet and unsweet iced tea, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say drink tea, be happy.
Is the canvas of our imagination. They tell a story. Clouds affect the events of your day. Sometimes they growl, sometimes they inspire, but they're always the messengers of nature's mood written in the sky. Storm Team 12 understands the language of clouds. We're dedicated to decoding their message so you know what to expect. Behind every cloud, there is a story waiting to be told. Trust Ross Jansen and Storm Team 12, alerting you first to the impact on your life.
When you need help, remember, you're not alone. We are here. We are neighbors. We are together. We are Kansas. We are 12 News.
They say,
What is GMFB Overtime?
It's Peter, Jamie, Kyle, and Akbar breaking down the NFL 5 days a week.
It's okay to be excited.
It's this, that, and a whole lot of... It's football for everyone.
Weekdays at 10 a.m. on KSCW.
Are following a breaking update.
Every day, all day, stream the stories that have you talking near and far.
Whoever is behind the wheel of this bus is not stopping.
From hundreds of local reporters and meteorologists spanning the country.
Chaos here this morning at the UW campus.
Search LNL for the all-new Local News Live streaming app.
Make yourself known now.
310-01 in traffic pursuit.
Oh my God, here.
Investigate TV Plus begins with real people.
We investigate stories that impact you.
And inspire change every day.
Something is broken.
Real problems.
Why are they hiding it?
And real solutions.
My daughter was dying in front of me.
What was your reaction when he said that?
Investigate TV Plus, weekdays at 3:30 p.m. on KWCH.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With 20 plus flavors of sweet and unsweet iced tea, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say drink tea, be happy.
Mornings are busy. We're here to make your mornings better. We report the stories that affect you.
3 more hospitalized from contaminated apple juice just a day after the FDA issued a recall.
We're here to make your mornings better.
Closing east and westbound lanes of K96 for repairs.
With 12 News, you're prepared for your whole day.
Scattered thunderstorms across the state into the afternoon.
Stay a step ahead with 12 News this morning on KWCH and KSCW.
On your way into work, want to keep listening to Sports Daily when you get out of the car with the Odyssey app and Odyssey.com, you can. Just download the app, visit Odyssey.com, search for KFH, download it today to get started. Welcome back in, everybody. Glad to have you here with us on Sports Daily, however it is that you're listening to the show. That Odyssey app's a great way to do it. You can download the podcast. We know a lot of you are listening to us that way. Thank you for that. You can leave us your comments and messages through the app with the little microphone. You just push it. Leave us a voice message and we can get right to it. All right, Tommy, let's dig into this KU game last night. Two very different halves, not offensively, two very similar halves offensively for KU, but it was the defense that really stepped it up in the second half, which was great to see because, in my opinion, the biggest issue from the first half was that KU was not making it difficult enough on Arizona State to score. Most notably, Hunter Dickinson was not making it difficult enough for Arizona State to score. Not even so much with the bigs, it was some problem, but the guards were attacking Hunter Dickinson. Like the guards were getting after him. And I thought, okay, well, that's an interesting problem because I'm not sure there's anything Dickinson's going to be able to do to stop that. But the adjustment obviously was there in the second half, and Arizona State couldn't do anything offensively. And I think when we talk about like who needs to play and all these things and who's out there, it is easy to forget that the strength of KU is and will be, and almost always is, how good they are defensively. And that, I don't know if we've seen a better defensive half than what we saw in the second half last night, but knowing what was happening in the first half and then seeing them adjust to it in the second half was a really, really positive sign, I think.
Isn't that the mark of Bill Self? I mean,
totally
second half adjustments. That's what kind of his
second
bread and
half
butter.
of seasons, right? That they usually become a really good defensive team.
Yeah, and I think a big question mark coming into this season was that we knew that in the transfer portal that Bill Self was able to acquire players that you thought could be offense creators, shot makers, all of that. But we didn't quite know where the defensive effort was going to come from individually because Kevin McCullough is no longer on the team. He was a great defensive player. And, there have been others historically for the Jayhawks that you always knew that's going to be your linchpin defensively. For a number of years, it was Marcus Garrett. You didn't really know where the defensive prowess was going to come from with this team. KJ Adams has shown flashes that he can play lockdown defense. But I don't think we really knew who exactly it was going to be. And I think that really, obviously, Hunter Dickinson, number one in the second half, played a great defensive game. But then I thought their guards, collectively in the second half, I don't know what it was, if it was just an uptick in effort, or if there were some scheme type things that Bill Self drew up, and probably a combination of both that really contributed to just a complete second half shutdown.
I think DeJuan Harris is and can be a good defender, but he's a little bit limited in who he can defend. It's Dickinson, I think, that is going to be the thing that teams attack and the person that teams attack, and they'll probably attack KU that way, the way that they did last night, which is get him out there, turn him around, and then just blow by him with a guard. So, that's where the adjustments come in. How does KU react to that and put a stop to that? And they certainly did. They were better defending the three as well in the second half. But I think you make a good point. Like, we were all focused because last year it was like, who's going to help offensively? And we couldn't ever, guys weren't hitting shots. Nobody was consistent there. I don't really work because we saw and last night, another good example of why that was such a good microcosm game is because if need be, Zeke Mayo can pick up the slack offensively. He's shown that now enough times where all the great KU teams have like the shot maker, right? The go-to clutch offensive, whether it was, Frank Mason or Devontae Graham or more recently Ochai Agbaji. Kevin McCullough tried to be that and then, of course, had his injury issues. But I wonder if Zeke Mayo can be that, and I think he probably can. I think that role has been open for this team, and I think he's stepping into it nicely. Now, I still contend that can't be for this team where the offense begins. It still has to begin with Hunter Dickinson. But I do think Mayo is becoming that, and so I worry less about that. The other thing we see out of great KU teams is they just become great defensive teams. I don't know whether or not Hunter Dickinson individually is going to be able to be a great defender, be a doke out there. In fact, I don't think he will be. I don't think he's that kind of athlete. So they're going to have to help. They're going to have to figure out how to do that. And when guards are targeting him, like they were in the first half, what can KU do to counteract that? Because it'd be great if you could let Dickinson play on the floor on offense and then pull him and let Badunga come out and play on defense. And I know Badunga fouled out last night, but they can't do that, right? You got to have Dickinson's offense. Therefore, you must have his defense. And if you must have his defense, you're going to have to figure out how to utilize other guys to help him. And they did that in the second half better than they've done it all year. That was what I took away from the game as I think the most big picture promising best thing we could have seen is it didn't look like they had an answer for that in the first half. Like, what are they going to do? Because Dickinson can't do it himself, but they helped as a team. They did it in the second half, and that was awesome.
By the way, I'm typically not a big fan of the too big lineup for any team, not just Kansas, but in general. I just don't usually like it. It's not, unless it's done really, really well.
How they
like,
play college basketball anymore.
Unless you're, the Spurs and you've got the Twin Towers down there in Robinson and Duncan, I'm typically not a fan of the too big lineup in general in basketball. But man, it does work with Dickinson and Badunga. Probably not every time. That's probably not what you're going to roll out there as your preferred lineup all the time. But as a change of pace, I'm okay with it because it's hard to have an answer for both of those guys down in the post. Can we talk about Shaquille Moore, by the way? Because, you want to talk about an individual effort defensively. Shaq Moore, I don't think anybody penciled this guy in as somebody that, maybe has found a role in the starting five long term.
Yeah.
And I think he's done it. I mean, he played 20 minutes. He scored 8 points.
I love his energy. Yeah.
He brings a huge spark when he's on the court. And really, I know Dickinson is going to always get the attention, but if you want to highlight one individual defender in the second half, at least to start the second half, it was Shaq Moore, and that energy that he brought, stifling defense. Keep in mind that the amount of points that the Sun Devils scored in the first half, that was the most first half points that Kansas has given up at home this season. And, so clearly there was a sense of urgency coming out of the locker room in the second half. And in my opinion, it did kind of start with Shaq Moore.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think Arizona State did it very deliberately and in an intentional way. And people are going to do that now. Like, they're going to target that. So we saw Hunter Dickinson dominate UCF, right? Because they tried to single him and they tried to do all these things. Where Arizona State was real deliberate about what they were going to do to stop Hunter Dickinson. And they did it. Now, offensively, what happens there for KU, right? Can they have a shot? When that happens, is somebody going to hit shots? Last night, Zeke Mayo hit some shots. DeJuan Harris, it tried to hit some shots. And maybe that's how they do that. I don't know yet. I don't think we know yet, because we'll probably see most teams now defend Dickinson that way. But on the other side of it, if KU is playing its high level of defense, it doesn't matter nearly as much, right? They can slow a game way down and just sort of grind it out and make it impossible for the other team to do what it wants to offensively. Then it doesn't matter as much. KU still didn't shoot well last night. And in fact, they shot worse in the second half than they did in the first half.
Didn't matter if you can hold your opponent to 15 points in the second half.
That's exactly right. And I think we have seen that out of KU teams before, right? Like, it won't matter if KU can become, and I haven't seen enough of the other Big 12 teams yet to say, like, KU should be the best defensive team in the. I have no idea because I haven't seen everybody play yet. But if it can get to that high level of defense, I do think it's going to unlock a lot of things, because it will make the pressure on the opposition to score every possession and make mistakes so much higher. Like, if KU's bread and butter can be that you're not going to score on us, like, we may struggle to score too. You may be able to stop Dickinson and we may struggle to shoot. That could happen. It has happened multiple times this year, but you ain't getting much on us either. And I think, look, we've seen KU teams be successful that way. The Shockers built an empire under Greg Marshall that way, right? Teams do that all the time. We just don't see it as much anymore in college basketball because everybody likes to fire away. I think we saw two things that one should make us optimistic and one should give us concern, right? They can't play the way they played in the first half defensively, or they're going to be in trouble. But if they play like they did in the second half, they could win a national championship.
Well, I think that's a really important point, because now that we know that they can, and again, remember, and you mentioned this before the break, that Arizona State was without its second leading scorer. So, you have to kind of take that into consideration a little bit as well. But now that we know that Kansas can come into a second half of a basketball game down by 6, go on an 11-0 run in the beginning of the second half. Arizona State doesn't score for the first 7 minutes of the second half. You know that they can do it. You know that the Jayhawks can do that, can have that level of intensity defensively. Now it's just that kind of becomes the expectation a little bit, right? Like, you know that you can. We've seen you do it. You got to keep that going and do it for
a fair expectation. You've got a team loaded with more experience probably than any team in the country. Expecting that level of defense night in, night out is very fair to me. It's not an unfair expectation.
I think it. Well, it's going to be the expectation of Bill Self, right? Because he's seen his team do it. And you look, I think there had been good defensive moments this season, but that was the most complete, at least in one half of basketball, defensive performance from the Jayhawks. And, you know, you better believe that Bill Self, in watching film and going through practices for the remainder of this week before their next conference game, he's going to say, all right, boys, like, you did it for a full half. That's now the baseline. Like, that's the kind of effort and intensity defensively that we need to see in every game. Because they can go out, and they did this offseason. They went and found the offensive type guys to mixed and varying results so far. AJ Storr has been a disaster this season for Kansas. He was last night as well. But obviously Zeke Mayo can hit shots, and Rylan Griffin, when he's on, can hit shots, and Shaq Moore, Diggy Coit, like, those guys are all shot makers, and they're doing that at varying levels of success so far this season. That's great. They needed that. That was a huge glaring deficiency after last season for Kansas. That's great. But on the nights when the shots are not falling, like at home against West Virginia, you have to have that kind of defensive intensity that they showed in the second half. That is now the baseline expectation night in and night out for Bill Self.
I think there's an intensity component to it for sure. I think you've listened to me talk about it before. Like, I need it from Dickinson more than we've had it for most of this year. That dunk, you saw the reaction of his teammates. Like, where's that been, right? That's the rest of people watching KU all year long. You could see his teammates get so hyped because we're all wondering the same thing. Like, yo, like, let's get fired up here. Like, what's going on?
And I want to be fair to Dickinson for a second here, because I think maybe you have a different opinion than I do on this. I think he has shown moments of intensity this season.
Yes.
They've resulted in flagrant fouls. And he's having a hard time, I think, figuring out what that level of intensity should be and how that manifests on the court.
I agree. That doesn't mean kick somebody. That means
you're right. You're right. But my point is, if I'm him, I'm thinking, man, the way I've tried to show my intensity so far this season has actually kind of hurt the team. It hasn't helped me. I've gotten ejected from games. So maybe I'll be a little bit more reserved on the court. And I think that's turned into maybe a little bit of tentative play, maybe a little bit of, but I think that dunk, like, that's the way to show that intensity, channel it and bottle it in a positive way.
He's too experienced. He's too important to make those mental errors, has been my point with him. And he's been much better with that lately, but yes, you must still bring it. And that's great. Like, I'm glad, because again, he is the player that they will live and die by. I think when I watch that game, and you can, like, so I try to say this a lot. Like, I'm not X's and O's, break you down, tell you about switches and all that stuff. Like, I can see it, but I'm not going to pretend like I'm a basketball coach, because I'm not. But the other stuff we can see, and even to me, like, it was so clear what Arizona State wanted to do in that first half, which was attack him while he's pulled out away from the rim. To see KU, and this is what I wonder, like, because I think, yes, the intensity and all these things were great in the second half, and they're all contributing. I also think there's probably a far more technical component to whatever it is that KU did at halftime. That's what I hope they can use moving forward. Like, whatever tweak, whatever change, technically speaking, that Bill Self and his coaching staff made, that appeared to solve what we've seen lots of times this year. So how can you replicate that? And then if a team counters that replication, how do you quickly on the fly change what you're doing? I'll say this. They get Iowa State soon, right? Next week in Ames. They play Iowa State. Iowa State this year is a very good team, not just a very good team. They're one of
the best teams in the country.
Well, they're one of the best offensive teams in the country. They score a ton. Like we're talking 80 to 100 most nights. Like this team scores a boatload. So that will be a great test for Kansas, and which means they probably run you, which is which I think sounds a bit of an alarm if you're a KU fan when you think about Dickinson having to run up and down the floor. Probably a game Badunga is going to have to be a big part of. Probably a game where Badunga can't foul out like he did against Arizona State because they're going to need him. Iowa State's going to run KU, I would imagine, and it'll be a great collision course of these styles in Ames. I would tell you right now that game concerns me. I would think
it should. I would think even if KU shoots the ball at a better clip than what they have this season. I mean, Iowa State's a really good team.
Well,
the
things that Iowa State's doing, I'm saying, are potentially the things that could get KU into a little bit of trouble. Like you think about the Duke game, that's not Duke's MO. Like Duke kind of plays like KU, so that was great to see. I'm trying to remember
any team in the nation and have Iowa State on your schedule and be a little bit
sure, yeah.
Because Iowa State's really good.
I would have to go back and look, and I assume just because history tells us it is that North Carolina is probably the most like offensively of what they'll see. I don't know. I'll have to defer on that to Sharice, but we'll talk to Sharice. No, we'll talk to Sharice before the game. I'll have to defer to him on that next week. Like who is the most like Iowa State offense? I would guess that it's North Carolina in what they do. And of course, KU fared well there, but Iowa State's a lot better than North Carolina. And that was a really close game. I don't know off the top of my head who would be the closest to that.
Keep an eye on this. It doesn't matter who the most like Iowa State has been on their schedule so far, because the differences, and I'm going to actually put the spotlight back again on Shaq Moore, because if you watched Arizona State, if you watched that game last night, and really any of the time that Moore has played this season in the small sample size, defensively, he's the guy that is trying to pick up the person bringing the ball up the court. Like he's defending full court. And so if Iowa State wants to run, they want to get up and down the court, then, Shaq Moore is going to be probably the guy who's putting the most miles on the engine in that game. They didn't have him in the non-conference. And so even a team like North Carolina, let's say North Carolina is the most like Iowa State running up and down the court. The Jayhawks didn't have a guy that could defensively guard from baseline to baseline. They're going to have that now against a team like Iowa State.
Was Shaq Moore defending full court in the first half? Because maybe that's a part of the adjustment that they made to help Dickinson. All right, 869-1240. We'll come back. We got a lot to get to today. Betting Insider, KState Insider, join us next hour. Don't go away.
66 counties, 4 regions, and 1 weather team that you can trust. Find Storm Team 12 every weekday at 5:30 on the KSCW. Whatever the weather and wherever you are, Storm Team 12 is zooming in, going zone by zone to give you a more in-depth look at the forecast and some science behind the storms so you know more. We're focusing on the forecast so you can focus on what's important to you. Storm Team 12 Weather Focus, 5:30 on the KSCW.
The future of television has arrived. Next Gen TV is here with stunning video, movie theater quality sound, enhanced voice clarity, and interactive features, all upgradable for the future. Learn more at watchnextgentv.com.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With 20 plus flavors of sweet and unsweet iced tea, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite, or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say, drink tea, be happy.
It's the canvas of our imagination. They tell a story. Clouds affect the events of your day. Sometimes they growl, sometimes they inspire, but they're always the messengers of nature's mood written in the sky. Storm Team 12 understands the language of clouds. We're dedicated to decoding their message so you know what to expect. Behind every cloud, there is a story waiting to be told. Trust Ross Jansen and Storm Team 12, alerting you first to the impact on your life.
When you need help, remember, you're not alone. We are here. We are neighbors. We are together. We are Kansas. We are 12 News.
They say,
what is GMFB Overtime?
It's Peter, Jamie, Kyle, and Akbar breaking down the NFL 5 days a week.
It's okay to be excited.
It's this, that, and a whole lot of... It's football for everyone.
Weekdays at 10 a.m. on KSCW.
Are following a breaking update.
Every day, all day, stream the stories that have you talking near and far.
Whoever is behind the wheel of this bus is not stopping.
From hundreds of local reporters and meteorologists spanning the country.
Chaos here this morning at the UW campus.
Search LNL for the all-new Local News Live streaming app.
Make yourself known now.
310-01 in traffic pursuit.
Oh my God, here.
Investigate TV Plus begins with real people.
We investigate stories that impact you.
And inspire change every day.
Something is broken.
Real problems.
Why are they hiding it?
And real solutions.
My daughter was dying in front of me.
What was your reaction when he said that?
Investigate TV Plus, weekdays at 3:30 p.m. on KWCH.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With 20 plus flavors of sweet and unsweet iced tea, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say drink tea, be happy.
Mornings are busy. We're here to make your mornings better. We report the stories that affect you.
3 more hospitalized from contaminated apple juice just a day after the FDA issued a recall.
We're here to make your mornings better.
Closing east and westbound lanes of K96 for repairs.
With 12 News, you're prepared for your whole day.
Scattered thunderstorms across the state into the afternoon.
Stay a step ahead with 12 News this morning on KWCH and KSCW.
All right, if you want to win some HTO, maybe some root beer iced tea, which is back, or a free coffee drink, you can right now by texting the keyword tea to the short code 20357. You can get a free iced tea and a free coffee for either Wichita location or in Derby. You can enter once per day. Message and data rates apply. Good luck, everybody. Welcome back into Sports Daily. Betting insider PJ Glasser joins us next hour. KState Insider Tim Fitzgerald joins us next hour. We got a lot to talk about with PJ. We got the CFP getting back in action tonight. We get Notre Dame Penn State tonight. Looking forward.
I'm excited about that. Are you looking forward to that game? I'm really
very much so. I'm honestly looking forward to both of these games. This will be. I think we're going to see highly competitive games on both fronts. I do like the Irish tonight, but that's probably nostalgia speaking for me as a kid who grew up. I mean, I'm talking loving Notre Dame football. Look, Catholic kid, like, yeah, you go for Notre Dame. I follow them far, 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 far less than I used to. Now it's more about like what's the Big 12 doing, and has been for a very long time. But I still, it still brings back a little nostalgia. So I'm hoping the Irish can get it done tonight. But Penn State's a good team. And I think we're to the point where this is exactly why we have this postseason. You've got two of these teams who would not have reached the CFP if it was under the old format. And I think that's important. Ohio State and Notre Dame wouldn't have been there.
None of these teams would have been there.
Well, they got reseeded, remember, but it's not based on the CFP rankings. So by the final CFP rankings, Texas and Penn State would have made it in. They got seeded differently because Boise and Arizona State got higher seeds. But Ohio State and Notre Dame would not have made the CFP. And they're probably the two favorites, honestly, to win this thing. And they're perfect examples of why we've had such a problem in college football. They both had bad losses early in the year. Ohio State's was late in the year, we'll call it. But they each had a bad loss, right? Forever, that has kept us from being able to know, well, maybe that still is the best team, right? And neither one of these teams may win the championship, and that's fine. But we have not allowed ourselves, we haven't allowed a team to have an off week in order to determine the best team. And the argument's always been, well, you can't lose those games. It adds intensity to those games. I'm like, no, it doesn't. They're not any more or less intense in those games. You're not any more or less interested as a fan in that game as it's being played because of that. I just want to know who the best team is. At the end of the year, when the season is completed, I would like to know who is the best team. And we've never been able to definitively say that in college football. And I think now, even through this year one, with some of the flaws that we've seen come to the surface, we will know who the best team in the country is by the time this season ends.
Looking at Notre Dame, for example, is there anybody on the face of the planet right now looking at the semifinal, getting ready for this game, that gives a damn that they lost to Northern Illinois at the beginning of the season?
Right.
Because I certainly don't. I don't care about that at all. I'm going to watch this hopefully entertaining as hell football game tonight between Penn State and Notre Dame, two legendary programs, some of the powers, blue bloods in college football historically. And I'm not thinking at all about the fact that Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois at the very beginning of the season. Irrelevant. Doesn't matter to me at all. I'm excited for this game, and I think that either one of these teams is absolutely deserving to be in this position.
If you're an Ohio State fan, you're thinking about the loss to Michigan, but the rest of us don't care anymore. I don't care that they lost to Michigan. Who cares, right? They're in this, and we thought they were the best team anyway.
Yeah, and that's why I think that Ryan Day has, the most on his shoulders out of all four coaches.
There's no James Franklin does too in relative terms, but you're correct. There's no question it's Ryan Day. And James Franklin, remember, his MO is he can't win the big one. I mean, that's where
James Franklin, he can't beat Ohio State or Michigan. That's been the big knock on James Franklin for a long time, is that in the Big Ten, he just gets dwarfed by those other two programs. Ryan Day, I mean, Ohio State throttled Tennessee last week. Nobody cares about that as far as the fan base at Ohio State. That's great. And I think
they'll only think about Michigan.
They only think about Michigan. And, so if Ohio State can beat Texas tomorrow and move on to the national championship game, I'm not saying that people then in that fan base forget about the fact that Ryan Day didn't beat Michigan or can't beat Michigan. I think they're going to temporarily forget about that if they're competing for a national championship.
Yeah, Michigan's so rent-free in Ohio State's head. It's,
for sure.
But imagine that, Tom. Imagine being a KU fan, and back in the day, you're in this situation for the football program, but you can't get over the fact that maybe you lost to Missouri in the regular season. Who cares? Every other team's yeah, I don't care. Bring on this. We're in the playoffs, or we're on to the next one, right? And the thing about Ohio State is, and Penn State, this is where Penn State, I think, is different. And everybody's different. Ohio State always has the best players. And that's where the heat has come for Ryan Day. Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama. Now maybe Texas is getting back to that point where it should be, quite honestly. They're always going to have the best players. So there is a different sort of inherent pressure. I think James Franklin is unfairly treated because Penn State never has all the best players, right? They have good play, but they're not the same. They're not the same. And so this will be there are 3 outcomes here I will be satisfied with, and one I will not be as a fan. I don't want Ohio State to win it. I will be just fine if any of the other 3 win it. The only saving grace is, for me, like, at least if Ohio State wins it, the unreasonable stuff with Ryan Day goes away. Like, I can't believe these kinds of coaches who are constantly recruiting the best players in the mix every single year get run out of town in college football. Look at Texas, right? Look at Texas. It has taken this long since they let go of Mac Brown to be able to get back to where they should have been the whole time. Like, you better be careful if you're Ohio State and you go and run off Ryan Day, right? That's crazy talk. And I know they've gotten spoiled because Urban Meyer was really good, and now Ryan Day has been really good. But it doesn't always happen that way.
Yeah, you're right. And don't you think, too, that, with Ryan Day, I think that this game tomorrow night against Texas goes a long way in solidifying what his long-term future looks like at Ohio State. Because, again, I don't even necessarily think that the Buckeyes have to win a national championship for the pressure to get off of Ryan Day's shoulders. I even think just them playing in the national championship game this season after them losing to Michigan, I think that takes I don't think it takes all of the pressure off his shoulders, but I do think it takes some of it off of his shoulders a little bit, because then I think you have that momentum going into next season. Now, if they don't win a national championship and then they go and lose to Michigan again next year, then the calls for his head are going to be so loud, like so loud.
I think the only thing that shuts obnoxious Ohio State fan up is him to win a national title. I don't think anything else will get it done. I really don't. College football fans probably become the most spoiled the most quickly, I think, of the sports. Like, you like big time program, like Alabama's about to go through this. And I think Kalen DeBoer is fine. And I think Kalen DeBoer is going to do a good job, but he's not going to be Nick Saban. Right. And so look at these great like what was Georgia before Kirby Smart got there?
Yeah.
Like, you better be careful. Like, you think about these things now and think, oh, well, Georgia's always going to be good. No, they weren't really that good before Kirby Smart got there. I mean, they've had a history of it, but they had a rough patch. Everybody does. There's not a college football team that is immune to it. Look at Michigan. But how long did it take Michigan to get back to relevance under Jim Harbaugh? And there were people like calling for Jim Harbaugh at times.
Yeah.
And I'm like, guys, like, what in the world are we doing here? Like, what are we? You can scale it down and think to KState and Chris Kleiman and his agitation with guys. It's hard to win 8 games every year. Like, what are we doing here? You got to think about where you are and where you could be in realistic terms, right? Like, and for Ohio State, you're realistically, right now as an Ohio State fan, every single year that you're going to have a chance to play for a national championship. I'll bet you if Ryan Day is their coach for the next decade, that Ohio State will be in the college football playoff 9 out of those 10 years.
9 out of 10?
That's how good they always are with him, because they're always going to have the best players.
How many of those 9 times do they win the national championship?
Let's call it.
I think that's the big question.
Well, okay,
right?
I'd say 1 is
1 out of 9
probably baseline. Yeah, 1 out of 9. But let's even say it's 0. But you're there every year, and you've won playoff games. It's not like you're getting first round bounced every year. To say that's not good enough or a guy should be fired because of that is really, really dangerous territory. We don't do that with March Madness. We do it to some degree in the NFL, to some degree. We didn't do it to Bobby Cox in Atlanta for your Braves. They won the division every year. How many titles did they get in that decade? Exactly. Was anybody like, oh, we got to get Bobby Cox out of here? No. Like, he can't win the big one. Like, that's because it's dumb. Like, he's there every year, right? But in college football, we do this. And it almost always fails miserably when it happens. Mac Brown.
But it only happens with the top tier programs, right? Like that, you're not hearing.
Yeah, probably so.
Like let's say that Boise State, for example, makes the CFP, it's not going to be 9 times out of 10, but let's say they make it 4 times out of 10. For a program like Boise State in the conference that they're in, that's fantastic. And I think they have the talent, to do that sort of thing. You're not going to hear, Oregon is, you're not going to hear, I don't think Dan Lanning.
No, I don't
think he's going to be on the hot seat if they make the CFP 9 times out of 10
I agree.
and win it 1 time. It's only for these like blue blood powerhouse programs where the expectations are so unmanageable. Like you need to win a national championship every single year. It's like everybody looks at what Nick Saban did at Alabama and they're like, it is the gold standard, but that's the way that it should be with every other program in America, every other top tier blue blood program.
Yeah, but to me, it's the wrong way to look at it. Like it's the wrong way to be a fan. You can be frustrated. You can want them to win the big one. You can get mad that you get there every year, but don't come through. But you've also got to realize that if Ryan Day wasn't the coach at Ohio State, there's a decent chance they're not even reaching the playoff. And that's where I think college, these big time programs, especially, but you can scale it down too. Let's take K-State. 8 wins is 8 wins and a Big 12 title every 4 years enough? Because I think it should be. Like if that's your baseline, if your baseline is 8 wins and a Big 12 title every 4th year, that's pretty damn good. So don't let success cloud expectations, I guess, and understand how difficult it is in college football. Now, we have a better path than we've ever had. So there's room for some of that air, which I think is one of the reasons why this has been so long overdue, is because these teams that have been really good consistently, they're going to at least have a chance at the table where they've never, K-State's never had a chance at the table before. They have a very clear chance at the table now. And that will help, I think, these coaches. But yeah, man, Ohio State to me, it's title or bust, or it's going to be fans will view this as a disappointing season for Ohio State.
I'd like to think that as long as they beat Texas and they're playing for a national championship, the heat won't be as high on Ryan Day, but you might be right.
Let's talk about the other game a little bit, and then we'll get into some of the injury updates for the NFL playoff round when we return. PJ Glasser, Tim Fitzgerald, join us next hour. Don't go away.
66 counties, 4 regions, and 1 weather team that you can trust. Find Storm Team 12 every weekday at 5:30 on the KSCW. Whatever the weather and wherever you are, Storm Team 12 is zooming in, going zone by zone to give you a more in-depth look at the forecast and some science behind the storms so you know more. We're focusing on the forecast so you can focus on what's important to you. Storm Team 12 Weather Focus, 5:30 on the KSCW.
The future of television has arrived. Next Gen TV is here with stunning video, movie theater quality sound, enhanced voice clarity, and interactive features, all upgradable for the future. Learn more at watchnextgentv.com.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With 20 plus flavors of sweet and unsweet iced tea, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite, or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say, drink tea, be happy.
It's the canvas of our imagination. They tell a story. Clouds affect the events of your day. Sometimes they growl, sometimes they inspire, but they're always the messengers of nature's mood written in the sky. Storm Team 12 understands the language of clouds. We're dedicated to decoding their message so you know what to expect. Behind every cloud, there is a story waiting to be told. Trust Ross Jansen and Storm Team 12, alerting you first to the impact on your life.
When you need help, remember, you're not alone. We are here. We are neighbors. We are together. We are Kansas. We are 12 News.
They say,
What is GMFB overtime?
It's Peter, Jamie, Kyle, and Akbar breaking down the NFL 5 days a week.
It's okay to be excited.
It's this, that, and a whole lot of. It's football for everyone.
Weekdays at 10 a.m. on KSCW.
Are following a breaking update.
Every day, all day, stream the stories that have you talking near and far.
Whoever is behind the wheel of this bus is not stopping.
From hundreds of local reporters and meteorologists spanning the country.
Chaos here this morning at the UW campus.
Search LNL for the all-new local news live streaming app.
Make yourself known now.
310-01 in traffic pursuit.
Oh my God, here.
Investigate TV Plus begins with real people.
We investigate stories that impact you.
And inspire change every day.
Something is broken.
Real problems
Why are they hiding it?
and real solutions.
My daughter was dying in front of me.
What was your reaction when he said that?
Investigate TV Plus, weekdays at 3:30 p.m. on KWCH.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With 20 plus flavors of sweet and unsweet iced tea, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say drink tea, be happy.
Mornings are busy. We're here to make your mornings better. We report the stories that affect you.
3 more hospitalized from contaminated apple juice just a day after the FDA issue a recall.
We're here to make your mornings better.
Closing east and westbound lanes of K96 for repairs.
With 12 News, you're prepared for your whole day.
Scattered thunderstorms across the state into the afternoon.
Stay a step ahead with 12 News this morning on KWCH and KSCW.
Now, from Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. This is Sports Daily with Jacob Albrocht and Tommy Kester.
All right, welcome back in to Sports Daily. Coming up in this hour, our betting insider PJ Glasser joins. We'll talk CFP, we'll talk NFL playoffs. We've got our KState Insider Tim Fitzgerald on. What is the state of K-State basketball right now? How do we define it? How do we look at it? What does he think about year one of these CFP playoffs and how they've played themselves out? I know he's been picking fights with national media people and all these other things. We'll talk to Fitz about that later in the program. Always appreciate Fitz.
That's one of my favorite things. But yeah, I love it when Fitz gets into fights.
He's
in
very
fact, he
good
should
at
do
it.
a whole segment called Fitz Fights.
Yeah, he just is easy. He gets in people's goats real easy. And it gives us fun things to talk about. So we'll do that in a little bit as well. You can get in touch with the program, KFH hotline 869-1240. You can leave us your video comments on Facebook, on YouTube, on X. Talked a lot of KU basketball there in the first hour. Their win, tale of two halves over Arizona State last night. You can always go back and listen to that on the Odyssey app as well and download the show that way and do it. Want to say thank you to Crestview Country Club for being great supporters of this show as we enter our first winter in that Crestview partnership. We are going to, Tommy and I, get to the TrackMan. We're going to watch some football or some college basketball one of these nights. We're going to have some beers and probably some wings. We'll get that done as soon as, we want to get out in the snow and walk through a parking lot, because right now that's how big of sissies we are. It's like, oh yeah, we could do that. man, I have to walk through the parking lot to get there, and then I'd have to walk back out to my cold car. Maybe we'll wait just a little bit longer on that. It's all right. We're comfortable in our manhood.
I got to tell you, though, I told you this when we were talking about the TrackMan out at Crestview. There's nothing more fun than watching, whether it's NFL or college football or college hoops, having a few beers, eating some food, and playing golf indoors while you're
hitting
doing
that simulator. Yeah,
it's so much fun.
It's a great time of year to get on a simulator. I will tell you that. I apparently that's like a thing now too. There's a league, like a professional golfers jumping on simulators.
Yeah.
So I wonder is like,
that's what they're calling that.
Yeah, TJ Cleland, friend and host of the show, was telling me that he thought it was pretty awesome watching it on TV, and I'm like, okay, this the next pickleball? Like, is this the next evolution of things? You know, Top Golf was for a little bit, and that phenomenon, which is a blast and a lot of fun. Is this the next stage or next step of that evolution to get there? I think it could be. And I think it's fun. Like, every time I do that stuff, I have a good time, and it's just a different way to play this sport that we love. So yeah, we appreciate Crestview's support of the program, and get out there and, you know, keep the game. I've told you before, my goal, Tommy, is to get by the end of next year, by 2025 will be the year I get back under 100 with my golf game. That's my goal. And that may not sound lofty, but that's pretty lofty for me. I got to cut about 15, 20 strokes off the average to get there.
Hey, at least you're shooting for something, right? You know, It's better than just, having nothing, no kind of goals or anything. We'll see if you actually accomplish it. I'd like to be able to have you track this, like film yourself while you play.
No, I'm not doing that.
And then maybe we could turn it into like a, online exclusive series. Like, Jacob tries to break 100.
Normally my golf handicap is like a 4 or 5 beer handicap. Like, I'm trying to find, that sweet spot. Like, whether you're playing golf or whether you're playing pool, like, what is that sweet spot of beers that really just like loosens you up enough to hit the moment? And of course, it's a momentary sweet spot before you fall off the edge of that. And then you have enough beers where like, yeah, I don't care anymore. It doesn't matter. I'm over it, whatever. But we're going to have a golf renaissance this year for me.
I like it. Yeah. Hey, by the way, how do you feel, going back to our conversation before our last break when we were talking about the CFP and everything? Did you follow what James Franklin said yesterday in the press conference with him and Marcus Freeman? So he kind of took a little bit of a shot at Notre Dame as far as the fact that they're an independent and they don't play in a conference. So his quote, and this has gotten a lot of play nationally over the last 24 hours, he said, "I think, again, this is no knock on Coach or Notre Dame, but I think everybody should be in a conference. I think everybody should play a conference championship game, or no one should play a conference championship game. I think everybody should play the same number of conference games."
That's kind of like the, no offense, but you're one pathetic loser. Like, I'm not, this is no offense to Notre Dame or the coach.
Well, it should be no offense to Marcus Freeman. He didn't make the fact that Notre Dame isn't in a
conference. But he's coaching at Notre Dame, right?
It's not his decision, though.
But he obviously buys into it, or he wouldn't be the coach of Notre Dame. I would imagine that he would say, we think our schedule was just fine. Notre Dame this year played and beat Texas A&M. They played and beat Louisville. They played and beat Navy. They played and beat Army. These are all good teams this year, by the way. Georgia Tech, who beat Alabama. Who did Georgia Tech beat? They didn't beat Alabama. Who did they beat?
They beat Georgia.
Georgia, yeah. Georgia Tech, who beat Georgia. Sorry, my apologies. And they blew out the bad teams that they put. Notre Dame's schedule was just fine this year. Just fine. They beat Indiana then in the playoff, and then Georgia. Notre Dame has every right to be in this playoff. If you're Notre Dame, you got to put yourself in their position. Why would you concede anything that you have as far as money or power in the sport? Like, oh, okay, let's just, we don't want to make all this money and have the power to do what we want anymore. You're right. Let's do that. Of course, they're not going to do that. So what's their incentive to change anything they've been doing?
Well, and meanwhile, Penn State, they beat Bowling Green, and Kent State, they beat, who else did they play? Purdue. They beat Purdue. They beat Minnesota. They beat Maryland. I mean, the Big Ten, once you get past the top couple of teams, was really, really bad this year. And so I think that the argument could be made that Notre Dame overall had more quality wins than Penn State did. So, sure. I mean, I'm not sure that James Franklin's argument holds a whole lot of water.
So according to, this looks like Sports Illustrated. I'm just looking here. I'm going to go to the top 25, and it says that Penn State had the 32nd toughest schedule this year, and Notre Dame. Where's Notre Dame? Hang on, quick search. And there's not really a good, like, we don't have like a Ken Palm for this, unfortunately. So it's not quite as easy. Notre Dame had it says 78th schedule ranking. So certainly not as good as Penn State's according to Sports Illustrated. If we pull up ESPN's power index, whatever that means, I think that's a strength of schedule indicator. Strength of schedule. Here we go. According to ESPN's Power Index Strength of Schedule ranker, Penn State is down. I'm just going to see, because I'm not going to count. They don't have numbers. I'm going to see how much higher they are than Notre Dame. They're higher than Notre Dame, according to that, by about 10 spots. So whatever. Like, I would contend, now the conference championship game part of it is interesting, because again, I've told you that, like, my fix to what we saw from Indiana is have all 4 of the best teams from each conference kind of play each other at the end of the year, whether that's for a conference title or whatever it is. I do like tying a conference title to a bye, and I'm not sure could Notre Dame ever get a bye in this format? I don't even know now off the top of my head, because they won't be a conference champion.
Yeah, I don't think they can.
I would have to look that up. They may have built in a loophole for them. I'm not sure. But either way, it is interesting to have so the reality is there were lots of teams that got in here, though, that didn't play in a conference championship game, Tommy. Like, they got into the postseason, right? There are several teams that got into the postseason without playing a conference championship game. Ohio State, right? Notre Dame got in without playing one. So that's why you have 12 teams, to avoid that. So I don't really understand the argument, because it's not going to, like, that's not a prerequisite every year that you have to play in a conference championship game. We had teams in this playoff that didn't even play in a conference championship game, and it wasn't just Notre Dame. Now, what I can't put my finger on is, how does losing a conference championship game potentially keep you out versus not playing in one altogether? Like had Indiana played in a conference championship game, Tommy, they would not have made the college football playoff, because they would have then lost that conference championship game. Or did they play in a conference championship? No, they didn't. They missed it. It was who played? It was Penn State, Oregon, right?
Yeah,
is that who played in the Big Ten championship game? And so Indiana missed it anyway. And so had they played in it, I think they would have lost. And so, like, that's a tough one. I don't think it's out of line to wonder about a conference championship game. I do think it's silly to continue to, to jar up the same conversation about Notre Dame needs to join a conference. No, Notre Dame needs to join a conference when somebody makes it worth it to join a conference for Notre Dame. Like, when the Big 12 says, hey, we can help you make more money than you're making as an independent, then they should. Otherwise, that's a dumb ask, because nobody would do that. Nobody would do that.
I think that the argument that James Franklin, and I get where he's coming from with it. I understand that his point of view is like, look, like, we have to go through, the same kind of schedule every single year through our conference. And then there's a conference championship. And then Notre Dame just gets to kind of play whoever they want and, set their own schedule. And then they find their way into the CFP. So generally, like, its most basic level, I get it. I get why James Franklin makes that argument. But once you actually dig into it, I mean, you can poke holes in that argument all day long. Once you actually dive in and look at all the details surrounding it.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, you're wasting your breath at that point. All right, let's get in PJ Glasser. When we come back, we'll talk about the game tonight. We'll talk about the game tomorrow and the NFL playoffs. Our betting insider joins Sports Daily next.
66 counties, 4 regions, and 1 weather team that you can trust. Find Storm Team 12 every weekday at 5:30 on the KSCW. Whatever the weather and wherever you are, Storm Team 12 is zooming in, going zone by zone to to give you a more in-depth look at the forecast and some science behind the storms so you know more. We're focusing on the forecast so you can focus on what's important to you. Storm Team 12 Weather Focus, 5:30 on the KSCW.
The future of television has arrived. Next Gen TV is here with stunning video, movie theater quality sound, enhanced voice clarity, and interactive features, all upgradable for the future. Learn more at watchnextgentv.com.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With 20 plus flavors of sweet and unsweet iced tea, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say, drink tea, be happy.
It's the canvas of our imagination. They tell a story. Clouds affect the events of your day. Sometimes they growl, sometimes they inspire, but they're always the messengers of nature's mood written in the sky. Storm Team 12 understands the language of clouds. We're dedicated to decoding their message so you know what to expect. Behind every cloud, there is a story waiting to be told. Trust Ross Jansen and Storm Team 12, alerting you first to the impact on your life.
When you need help, remember, you're not alone. We are here. We are neighbors. We are together. We are Kansas. We are 12 News.
What is GMFB overtime?
It's Peter, Jamie, Kyle, and Akbar breaking down the NFL 5 days a week.
It's okay to be excited.
It's this, that, and a whole lot of... It's football for everyone.
Weekdays at 10 a.m. on KSCW.
Are following a breaking update.
Every day, all day, stream the stories that have you talking near and far.
Whoever is behind the wheel of this bus is not stopping.
From hundreds of local reporters and meteorologists spanning the country.
Chaos here this morning at the UW campus.
Search LNL for the all-new Local News Live streaming app.
Make yourself known now.
83101 in traffic pursuit.
Oh my God, here.
Investigate TV Plus begins with real people.
We investigate stories that impact you.
And inspire change every day.
Something is broken.
Real problems
Why are they hiding it?
and real solutions.
My daughter was dying in front of me.
What was your reaction when he said that?
Investigate TV Plus, weekdays at 3:30 p.m. on KWCH.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With 20 plus flavors of sweet and unsweet iced tea, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say, drink tea, be happy.
Mornings are busy. We're here to make your mornings better. We report the stories that affect you.
3 more hospitalized from contaminated apple juice just a day after the FDA issue a recall.
We're here to make your mornings better.
Closing east and westbound lanes of K96 for repairs.
With 12 News, you're prepared for your whole day.
Scattered thunderstorms across the state into the afternoon.
Stay a step ahead with 12 News this morning on KWCH and KSCW.
And now, digging deeper with the teams you follow, it's another Sports Daily Insider interview on KFH.
And that's right. Mr. Booming Voice there on the line, the host of Send It In, an Odyssey Sports betting insider, PJ Glasser. Insider Calls presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. Also, be sure to listen to the Send It In podcast for more analysis. Just search Send It In on the Odyssey app. PJ, welcome in. Happy postseason week. We're through the holidays now. Good to talk to you again.
Good to talk to you guys. Yeah, what a 5-day stretch we have starting tonight, the Orange Bowl, and then we get Ohio State, Texas, and then the NFL playoffs. So it's an epic sports day. I don't think a lot of us realize when we changed to this 12-team college football playoff format, like how incredible this stretch would be. But it's going to be awesome. Can't wait.
It's going to be awesome. And I let's start with college football. I think it'll mostly be awesome because we expect these to be two competitive games. The time off maybe made some games not as competitive in the early rounds for whatever reason. Are you in that camp? Do you think, I know the lines are certainly tighter than they have been. Are you subscribing to these games being closer in this college football playoff?
Yeah, I think they will. I think we're making too much out of last round and, all the lower seeds advancing and all the teams that had buys losing just because, again, like all the lower seeded teams were favored, so I don't really think it's that big of a deal. I think these two semifinal games, though, that we're going to get are going to be really good. Notre Dame and Penn State are very similar teams. It reflects that in the line and the fact that we have a low total. I would expect this to be like a 20-17 type game, 24-20 type game. I think it comes right down to the wire, and I wouldn't be shocked if either team wins that game. And then obviously Ohio State, with the way that they're playing, especially in their last two games, we're just looking for anybody to give them a game. And I think if there's a team in the country that can do that, it's Texas. I think these are the two most talented teams in college football. These are the two highest power-rated teams. And I think Texas can give them a game. So, I think both games are going to be close.
Talking about tonight's game, PJ, you've got two really experienced quarterbacks in Riley Leonard and Drew Aller for both of these teams. And it was really easy, I think, for instance, looking at the last game last week when Georgia played and they had their backup quarterback out there, and you could find a clear deficiency, at least at the quarterback position, with a team like Georgia. That's not the case in this matchup tonight with two really experienced quarterbacks. Is there an angle there, you think, as far as offense is concerned with the play callers?
I think there could be, Tommy. I think the angle that I'm interested in this game is how does Notre Dame react after that win against Georgia, right? Because we already saw them in kind of a letdown spot earlier this year when they beat A&M and then they lost to NIU. And both teams that have beaten Georgia this year, Bama and Ole Miss, have lost the following week. Bama lost to Vandy and Ole Miss lost to Florida. So how does Notre Dame handle all that success? And a lot of people, are commenting at me and they're saying, oh, it's the playoff. It's the Final Four. Like, they're not going to have any letdown. And I think as fans, we can even feel it, right? Like, don't you guys feel like the Notre Dame-Georgia game had a lot more steam than kind of this Notre Dame-Penn State game does, right? Like, if the Chiefs were to play the Ravens or the Bills in the divisional round and then turn around and play like the Texans or the Chargers, right? You don't think that game would have more steam than that? So I disagree, and I think Notre Dame, I'm a little worried about them possibly being sluggish in this game. I like Marcus Freeman a lot as a head coach. I think they're the better team. So I think Notre Dame wins the game, but I think Penn State betting them early, like first quarter, first half. They've started fast in the playoffs. They were up 28 at halftime on SMU. They were up 10 on Boise in the first half. And Notre Dame with Jeremiah Love banged up, coming off that injury that he suffered in the Sugar Bowl against Georgia. Just the physicality of that game against Georgia too. I kind of like Penn State early in this game, first half, and then I think Notre Dame second half, and they win the game.
I do think they're going to just smash each other in this one. And then you said you do like the under in that game too, right?
I do. I think it's going to be low scoring. 45.5. Now, the play caller for Penn State, Andy Kotelnicki, has done an incredible job, and he's really developed Drew Aller. But both of these defenses are solid, especially if Abdul Carter plays for Penn State. He's maybe the best linebacker in the country. Both teams want to run the ball to set up their pass. The problem is these are two really good run defenses. So I kind of think both are going to make each other one-dimensional. And if you make Drew Aller and Riley Leonard one-dimensional, both teams are not built to play that way. Their receiving cores are not as strong as some of the others in the country. And I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. So, yeah, like I said, 2017, 23-20, somewhere in that neighborhood, like the under. And I'll take Notre Dame to win the game.
Tomorrow night's semifinal matchup, Ohio State, Texas. You talked a little bit about that matchup a few minutes ago, but Texas has been playing with fire for a while, and they haven't gotten totally burnt yet. I mean, they've been able to continue on, but they let Arizona State back into the game last week, and now they're taking on an Ohio State team that absolutely throttled Oregon and avenged the loss earlier this season to the Ducks. The line reflects that with Texas being about touchdown underdogs. What do you like in that matchup?
It does reflect it, Tommy, but I think it's reflected it too much. I think we're kind of, this is max peak value right here on Ohio State, because the look ahead line for these two teams before Texas played in the Peach Bowl and Ohio State in the Rose Bowl, Buckeyes were 1.5 2-point favorites. And now, like you said, they're up to 6. Guys, for a line to jump 4 points at this point in the season, I think is insane, especially if there are no major injuries, right? We have 15, 16, games of data on these teams. Like, we know what they are at this point. If you haven't been watching, Ohio State's been the best team all year. And if you just haven't been watching college football, then that's on you. But they've been the best team. So I think this shock from everybody that, like, wow, Ohio State's really good. They've changed their play calling and they've started to throw the ball a little bit more, which is why we're starting to see the results. But their defense has always been stacked. Their offense has always had the best running back room and the best receiving room. So they've always been capable of this all year. If there was a team that could match up with Ohio State, though, it is Texas. They have the best secondary in college football. They have the best corner in college football. Guys, I feel like, too, I've talked about this on your show a lot when I've come on. Anytime we get a team that's used to always being the favorite and we get to play them in the underdog role, those teams usually show up, right? We know how great Mahomes tends to be as an underdog. So I like Texas in this spot at +6. I like the over too, because I think Ohio State's going to score their points. I think they're going to get into the 30s. So if Texas wants to keep this game close or even pull off the upset, I think they got to score with Ohio State. I'll take the Longhorns +6.
All right, we'll see if the Texas defense can show up there in that. I can't wait for either one. These should be awesome games. The NFL playoffs are almost always good, BJ, and we get games Saturday, we get games Sunday, we get games Monday. Let's start Saturday. I think most Chiefs fans feel like the Chargers-Texans game probably produces the divisional round opponent for the Chiefs. But your Ravens, those pesky Steelers who look terrible lately, but they play the Ravens close a lot of the time, and we know the history there in that rivalry. Let's go through Saturday, and we'll start with the later game first. Do the Steelers have any chance to cover that number?
They absolutely do. They absolutely do. It would only be the Steelers at +10 or pass for me, guys. As you know, I'm a Ravens fan, and I'm kind of shocked at the general consensus and opinion around this game. I understand the Ravens have won 4 in a row. The Steelers have lost 4 in a row. The Ravens are the highest power rated team in the NFL. A lot of people feel like if the Ravens play their game, they're the best team. And I'm in that boat as well. Problem is they never play their best game when they go up against the Steelers. And this game is always about which way the ball bounces. Usually any other game in the NFL, right? Like, we can talk about which team has a schematic advantage. We can talk about the roster. We can talk about which team is in good form and this and that. But guys, I'm telling you, you watch a Ravens-Steelers game and you will know within the first 10 minutes who's going to win the game, because there's going to be a fumble, there's going to be a tip pass, there's going to be a missed kick, a drop pass, something. There are going to be a couple plays that happen, and that'll set the tone for the rest of the game. When these two teams played 3 weeks ago, people are talking about how the Ravens won by 17. They're not talking about the fact that Lamar got stripped on the first drive, but the Ravens recovered. Or that on the second drive, the Ravens, when they received the punt, they fumbled, but they recovered. When these two teams met in Pittsburgh earlier in the season, you had Derrick Henry fumble on the first drive of the series, and Derrick never fumbles. Tucker missed 2 kicks in the first quarter. You had Isaiah Likely fumble before the end of the first half. So that's what this game is. It's all about which way the ball bounces, and the Steelers are going to force fumbles against the Ravens. The question is, do they recover? Do the bounces go their way? But look, the underdog in this series, just, you got to take it. The last 20 times these two teams have played, Pittsburgh or the underdog, I should say, 16-3-1 against the spread. The last 20 meetings, this game has been decided by 7 points or less in 16 of those. So Harbaugh and Tomlin, they know each other better than any coaching duo in the NFL. They played each other the second most of any coaching duo. There are no surprises. It's all familiarity. I think we get another close game. I think the Ravens win, but 10 is too many points. I'll take Pittsburgh.
It's going to be really interesting with Lamar. I mean, considering how he plays against the Steelers and how he just generally plays in the playoffs, kind of a perfect storm, coming together for Lamar. Is there anything with him or any other players individually that you like on the prop market?
There are. So there are 3 props I like in this game. Lamar and Derrick Henry over rush attempts. I like both of those things. They're calling for high winds. They're calling for snow, it looks like, and obviously cold temperature. And now without Zay Flowers, I really think the Ravens passing attack could struggle in this game. And I honestly think, guys, it could be for the best because the Ravens get themselves into trouble against Pittsburgh when they throw the ball way too much. It's a lot like when they play Kansas City. They need to run the ball against these teams. So I think the injury to Zay is going to put more of a focus on that. I like Derrick Henry over 20.5 rush attempts. I like Lamar over 8.5 rush attempts. I would look at Lamar passing yards under as well. And then George Pickens, take his longest reception over 23.5 yards. There is one liability in the Ravens secondary, and it's Brandon Stevens. And I think in the postseason, you're going to see teams really attack him, and especially Pittsburgh. They know if they see a one-on-one with Pickens and Stevens, Russ is throwing him a go ball. So I think Pickens, has like a 30-yard, 35-yard reception. I like his longest reception over as well.
I'm going to take your word on it. I don't think, in fact, I know there is no singular player that I have lost more money on the last 2 years than George Pickens, one way or the other. I cannot get his games right to save my life. Let's talk Chargers-Texans. Very likely a Chiefs preview game. I think most people like the Chargers because the Texans are reeling, but you do get a chance at a home underdog here. What do you like in that one?
So, guys, I'm not usually one to look at a trend and for that to be the sole reason why I like a side, but this one is just, it's too hard to ignore and it's pretty incredible. Since 2017, teams that missed the playoffs the previous year and are a favorite in their wild card game, 1-14 against the spread. Wow. 1-14. And that's what we got with the Chargers. We also have that with the Vikings on Monday night against the Rams. But I think it makes a lot of sense, right? You get a team miss the playoffs. They kind of exceed expectations the following year. They're coming into the playoffs against a team that's probably stumbling into the playoffs, probably didn't play in a division that was very good. And there's just too much value on them. With the Chargers being 3-point favorites in Houston, this tells me that they're like 4.5 points better than Houston on a neutral field. And I don't think that's the case. I think the Chargers are better. I don't think they're 4.5 points better than Houston. Texans still got a good coach. They got a good defense. I know their offense, especially their wide receiver room, is decimated, but Stroud is a much better quarterback at home than he is on the road. And I've just never been a Herbert fan. I've always thought he was overrated, and I never trusted him in big games or games that you have to win. So I like Houston. That trend I think speaks volume. In fact, you're getting a key number. Houston's a home underdog, and this game feels a lot like when they played the Browns last year, and everybody loved Flacco in Cleveland, and they loved that story, and they were a hot team coming in. Texans blew them out. I don't think the Texans are going to blow out the Chargers, but I like them +3, and I think the Chiefs are going to end up playing Houston in the divisional round.
3 games, PJ, on Sunday: Broncos and Bills and Buffalo, Packers and Eagles and Philadelphia, Commanders and Buccaneers in Tampa Bay. Out of those 3 matchups, which one is your favorite to bet?
It's going to be the Bucs -3 against Washington. I think Washington's a little bit overrated, guys. They've won 4 games in a row, but you look at all 4 of those games and they easily could have lost them. They need a failed 2-point conversion against New Orleans. They need Devontae Smith to drop that pass when they played Philly. They beat Atlanta in overtime. And then this Dallas game you can kind of throw away because Jade Daniels didn't play the second half. But I think we all look at Washington and their record and how they're coming into the postseason hot, but their offense still isn't what it was to start the season. And Tampa, more playoff experience on that roster. They were in the divisional round last year. They're really tough to beat at home. So I'll take the Bucks -3. Another game where I like a prop, Jaden Daniels over rushing yards. You look at what he has done since the bye week when he was able to get healthy again. He's been running a lot, and he's really using his legs. And when he played Tampa earlier in the year in week 1, 16 carries for 86 yards. So I'll go over rushing yards for Jaden Daniels. I like the Bucks -3.
I think one of the most confusing games, PJ, is Green Bay and Philadelphia because both of the quarterbacks have been hurt and both of the quarterbacks have been limited. So how do you handle big time injuries like that in these big time games? Do you just ignore them because they're playoff games and you know they'll both play?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, the Christian Watson injury is a big deal too, fellas, especially going up against the Eagles secondary with his speed. That's going to be a big deal. It's probably the toughest game of the week to handicap. If I had to pick a side, I would take Green Bay just because LaFleur is so great as an underdog against the spread, especially if 3 or more points. And you look at the Packers this year, they're 0-3 against the top 3 teams in the NFC, Minnesota, Detroit, and Philly. They lost both games to Detroit and Minnesota, and they lost to the Eagles. However, 4 of those 5 games were decided by 5 points or less. So even though they're not beating these top teams, they're playing them close. I think they play another close one against Philly. So if I had to bet the game, I'd look at Green Bay +4.5.
All right, PJ, a couple more minutes here. The other games you've got, your favorite bets from what have we not talked about? Broncos, Bills, or Vikings, Rams?
Yeah, I'll go quick on each one. I like the Bills -9, guys. I think it's a bad matchup for Denver because the things that they do well, Buffalo also does well. Denver's first in sacks. Buffalo is first in preventing sacks. Denver's first in EPA, yards per play on defense. Buffalo is second. So it's just a bad matchup. The things that the Broncos do well, Bills also do well. I'll take Buffalo -9. And then finally, give me the Rams at home, -105 against Minnesota. Vikings only lost to 2 teams this year in the regular season, the Lions twice and LA. Reason for that is both the Rams and the Lions want to run the ball to set up the pass. Even though Minnesota is the second best run defense in the NFL, you still have to run at them. They force the most interceptions. So if you just go one-dimensional, they're going to kill you. McVay and the Rams know that. I would look at Kyron Williams getting a heavy dose in this game, and I like the Rams to come out on top, guys. Give me LA in that one.
All right, PJ, we appreciate it. Enjoy the bets. We'll be back here next weekend for what I think is the best NFL weekend, which is the divisional round. Looking forward to it. Thanks for hopping on with us. Thanks for switching your time around for us. And we're looking forward to a great football weekend.
Absolutely. No problem. Great talking with you guys. Enjoy the football, and we'll see you next week.
That was the host of Send It In and Odyssey Sports Betting Insider, PJ Glasser. Insider Calls presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. I can't wait for it, Tommy. Like this is I'm pretty sad. I certainly bet the most football, and it's almost done, and I'm getting sad about that.
Well, we had a couple of days without football entirely. Monday was the FCS national championship, but then yesterday, no football. Tuesday, no football. We're gonna get it tonight, tomorrow night, Saturday, Sunday, Monday night. So enjoy it, soak it in 5 days in a row. Can't wait.
Yeah, got to take advantage. We appreciate PJ. All right, we're going to come back. We're going to continue to rock and roll here on Sports Daily. Don't go away.
66 counties, 4 regions, and 1 weather team that you can trust. Find Storm Team 12 every weekday at 5:30 on the KSCW. Whatever the weather and wherever you are, Storm Team 12 is zooming in, going zone by zone to give you a more in-depth look at the forecast and some science behind the storms so you know more. We're focusing on the forecast so you can focus on what's important to you. Storm Team 12 Weather Focus, 5:30 on the KSCW.
The future of television has arrived. Next Gen TV is here with stunning video, movie theater quality sound, enhanced voice clarity, and interactive features, all upgradable for the future. Learn more at watchnextgentv.com.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With 20 plus flavors of sweet and unsweet iced tea, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say drink tea, be happy.
It's the canvas of our imagination. They tell a story. Clouds affect the events of your day. Sometimes they growl, sometimes they inspire, but they're always the messengers of nature's mood written in the sky. Storm Team 12 understands the language of clouds. We're dedicated to decoding their message so you know what to expect. Behind every cloud, there is a story waiting to be told. Trust Ross Jansen and Storm Team 12, alerting you first to the impact on your life.
When you need help, remember, you're not alone. We are here. We are neighbors. We are together. We are Kansas. We are 12 News.
They say,
What is GMFB overtime?
It's Peter, Jamie, Kyle, and Akbar breaking down the NFL 5 days a week.
It's okay to be excited.
It's this, that, and a whole lot of. It's football for everyone.
Weekdays at 10 a.m. on KSCW.
Are following a breaking update.
Every day, all day, stream the stories that have you talking near and far.
Whoever is behind the wheel of this bus is not stopping.
From hundreds of local reporters and meteorologists spanning the country.
Chaos here this morning at the UW campus.
Search LNL for the all-new Local News Live streaming app.
Make yourself known now.
831001 in traffic pursuit.
Oh my God, here.
Investigate TV Plus begins with real people.
We investigate stories that impact you.
And inspire change every day.
Something is broken.
Real problems
Why are they hiding it?
and real solutions.
My daughter was dying in front of me.
What was your reaction when he said that?
Investigate TV Plus, weekdays at 3:30 p.m. on KWCH.
Sometimes people tell us, I don't get it, it's just tea. But let me tell you, we are so much more than just tea. With 20 plus flavors of sweet and unsweet iced tea, the possibilities are endless. Come on in and try them all for free to find your favorite or get us on the go for your busy lifestyle. And don't miss happy hour every day. So the next time someone tells you it's just tea, tell them to come by and find out why we say drink tea, be happy.
Mornings are busy. We're here to make your mornings better. We report the stories that affect you.
3 more hospitalized from contaminated apple juice just a day after the FDA issued a recall.
We're here to make your mornings better.
Closing east and westbound lanes of K96 for repairs.
With 12 News, you're prepared for your whole day.
Scattered thunderstorms across the state into the afternoon.
Stay a step ahead with 12 News this morning on KWCH and KSCW.
Welcome back in, everybody. It is Sports Daily. Jacob Albrock, Tommy Castor. Trying to connect with Fitz. If we can't do that today, we'll get him back in. No problem there. Tommy, so far, we haven't even talked at all about these NFL playoffs incoming. And I'm really fired up about a lot of these matchups. And like when we've talked about, the Chiefs opponent, we've dug in a little bit, but like do you ever, I don't know how much, I know you love fantasy football. Do you do any of these like playoff leagues? They're so fun.
I do.
But a big part of them is trying to predict what team will play the longest. So if you've never done it, basically in a playoff fantasy football league, like everything's available for you there at the top, at the beginning. but you don't ever set anything. So if you pick players on teams that get eliminated, they only help you for 1 week. So there's a lot of like fun strategies. So super fun.
Like, is it better
it.
to have the star player on a team that might get bounced in the first round? Right. Or is it better to have somebody that maybe a third wide receiver on a team like the Ravens that may make a big, or the Lions that may make a long time run, and they can help you for multiple weeks, but then do they get the ball at all during that time?
It's fun. And so you get to like, and the game we didn't talk about much there with PJ was Rams Vikings. You get to that game and you're like, man, if you hit with Justin Jefferson or Puka Nacua, like if you could just guarantee me 2 games from those guys, be good. But I'm looking at the NFC playoffs right now, and to me, in the AFC, it really is about 3 teams, right? I have a hard time imagining it not being the Chiefs, the Ravens, or the Bills. I think as much as it ever is in the NFL playoffs, it is almost certainly going to be one of those 3 teams. When you go and you look at the NFC, though, I think you can make a case for the Eagles. I think you can make a case for the Vikings, for the Rams, for the Lions, maybe a puncher's chance for Green Bay. They do have some injuries now that they're dealing with. Probably not Washington, probably not Tampa. But there are a lot more. There's a lot more out there, I think, in the NFC. Now, I do subscribe to the Lions being the favorite out of the conference, but I also think there are a lot of potential teams out of the NFC that could make a run. The Eagles are the second most likely according to the odds to do it at 7-1. That would be to win the Super Bowl. To win the NFC, the Eagles sit about 325-1. So I don't know. I don't know what the right way to do that is or look at it. It does feel like the NFC is more wide open, but here's the oddity there. And I love looking at this stuff. If you go right now and you look at the futures, the Lions have a better chance to win the NFC than the Chiefs have to win the AFC. But if you look at the NFC, all of the teams essentially have the same or better odds than every team after the Chiefs, Ravens, Bills. So it's like, how do you factor that in, right? The Chiefs are less likely, according to the odds, than the Lions to make it, right? But that's because of the 2 teams directly under them. The Lions are more likely to reach the Super Bowl than the Chiefs, but there are more teams in the NFC with better odds than all of the teams in the AFC, with the exception of those 3. That kind of stuff fascinates me, and it tells the story that we see too. Like, right, there's a better chance that any of these teams could come out of the NFC than anybody else other than the 3 favorites come out of the AFC.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure that there's another team in the AFC that has me shaking in my boots. If I'm one of those 3, if I'm the Chiefs, for example, outside of the Ravens and the Bills, I don't know if there's another team in the AFC that I'm really overly concerned about.
No, you should always be concerned about teams. I think that team is the Chargers. I think if you had to take one of the others at this point, it would be the Chargers. I think that has a lot to do, and honestly, it probably has everything to do with the coach and quarterback, right? You just take that coach and quarterback. I think if you were looking for any of those teams, and again, I'd bet the house that it's one of the other 3 teams. But if you're making me tell you who could be the other one, I do think it's the Chargers would be the one that you look at.
Well, and and then you compare that and contrast that with the NFC, and man, like every team that's in the NFC right now, I could see make a deep run. No, I don't know. I mean, probably, I'm sure the weakest are the Commanders and the Bucks. Probably out of all.
No. So here's the strange one, and I'm actually looking at this and thinking about it. My favorite long odd bet, it's not going to be to win the Super Bowl, but I think my favorite long odd bet right now is the Rams at 15-1 to win the NFC. That's interesting to me. Like, they don't have a very good defense. I get it. But man, they've got a great offense. They have a great offense.
They're dangerous.
Yeah.
And a lot of people wondered what this team would look like the older that Cooper Kupp gets. And all they've been able to do is keep him productive while also bringing up Puka Nacua. And that's been a huge development this season for the Rams. You add in Kyron Williams, who was a revelation a year ago.
Yeah.
And Matthew Stafford is just Mr. Consistent, right?
Totally.
And, so from an offensive point of view, yeah, they can put up points very, very quickly. It's just going to be a matter of, now that you don't have, Aaron Donald in that lineup anymore, and he was the cornerstone for so long with that defense. Can they keep the other team? Can they keep their opponents in the playoffs from putting up a bunch of points too? They strike me as the kind of team that if they're going to win, and they're going to, potentially win the NFC for that matter, they've got to be clicking on all cylinders offensively to keep up with the fact that their defense can't stop anybody.
We probably need to do this because we have not. Now that the playoffs are here, what is your Super Bowl prediction as we're talking about these, playoff fantasy football? Because that's the goal, right? When you do those playoff fantasy football, like you try to get as many players as you can from the teams you think are going to make the Super Bowl. I've also done some, by the way, where you can only take one player from every team. Have you done one of those? Those are awesome.
Not, no.
So you can only take one player from every team, and that's it. And those are super cool too. But anyway, Super Bowl preview. Who do you think it's going to be this year?
I think it's going to be the Chiefs and the Lions, and I'm pretty sure that was my prediction at the beginning of the season. I mean, I think we'll see Kansas City and Detroit, make it in, and I can pull that up. I've got, we can pull up the receipts on that. But yeah, I mean, why go against Kansas City when they've won 2 in a row and they have got the best record in football, tied with the Lions? And I think Detroit showed me a lot in beating Minnesota this last week and beating them thoroughly. And I know a lot of it was self-inflicted mistakes that the Vikings had. They couldn't score in the red zone, all of that. But Detroit flexed a little bit and I think put themselves head and shoulders above everybody else. I know that's probably the easy pick. I mean, the two teams that have the buys, but man, I'm going Kansas City and Detroit.
So I was just about to be so proud of myself because I was going to be able to recall our preseason predictions. Jad put those together from us, but I have last year's predictions, not this year's. I don't know if you'll have those. I don't remember.
Yeah, I can pull them up.
I don't remember. Now I'm nervous because I want to stick with whatever I said, but I can't remember who I put the Chiefs up against. Did I put them up against the Lions? Did I don't recall. Tommy's going to get that. So for me, it's definitely, and look, I've never wavered from the Chiefs this year. I think there were times where maybe I was a little bit concerned, but what has kept me on them has kept me on them, and now they're the healthiest that they've been. I don't think there's been enough talk about the fact that finally the Chiefs are healthy. They haven't been healthy all year long, and they're finally now healthy. We look up and down the roster, and just a handful of injury concerns going into that first round. That's what makes them, to me, and they've got home field and they've got all these things. We'll see on the rust factor. I do think that's something to watch, but I think that's also something they can overcome within a game if their defense plays well. Who did I have?
Yeah, it looks like you have the Chiefs and the Eagles playing in the Super Bowl.
Stick with that, but I'll have to. I've
got the Chiefs and the Lions playing in the Super Bowl.
I'll have to stick with it. I don't like that, but just because I'm stubborn like that, I'll stick with the Eagles.
Looks like TJ also picked. TJ has the Ravens and the Eagles playing in the Super Bowl.
Okay.
And it looks like Jad also picked. He's got the Niners and the Texans in the Super Bowl.
No, Jad.
Yeah.
Oh, no, Jad.
Jad
he can only get half of that right.
So are you sticking with the Chiefs and Eagles in the Super Bowl?
I might as well. So it brings me back to the point I was going to make is I really don't know in the NFC. I want to say the Lions now, but I think there is absolutely a path for the Eagles. I think there's absolutely a path for the Vikings, and I think there's absolutely a path for the Rams. So, yeah, look, I'll stick with the Eagles. I don't have a problem taking the Eagles there.
I mean, I've got this pulled up now, so we might as well go through it. Your predictions and my predictions, too, for divisional winners and wild cards. Okay. See how well you did? Okay, yeah. So you got every single divisional winner correct.
No way. Why didn't I bet that?
Buffalo, Baltimore, Houston, Kansas City. But the wild card, that's where things got off track for you a little bit. The Jets, I'm sorry about that for you, for your sake. the Bengals. Sorry about that for your sake.
Yeah.
And the Colts. Sorry about that for your sake.
Yeah.
Those were your wild card teams. For me, I got 3 of the 4. I picked Miami to win the division for in the East. The Ravens, the Texans, and the Chiefs. But then I picked the Chargers to be a wild card team, so that was good. But then I also picked the Colts and the Bengals. So I had Buffalo missing the playoffs altogether.
Yeah. Which is more egregious, you having Buffalo miss the playoffs or me having the Jets be a wild card team? I don't know.
Probably the Jets is a wild card team. As far as the NFC is concerned, you picked the Eagles correct. You picked the Lions correct. But then you picked the Falcons to win the South.
Which was close, almost happened.
And you picked the Niners to win the West. Your
Everybody
wild card.
Everybody on the planet did.
Yeah. Your wild card teams were the Packers, the Cardinals, and the Cowboys.
Okay.
And then in the NFC for me, my divisional winners were the Eagles, got that correct. The Lions got that correct. Tampa Bay got that correct. And then I picked the Niners to win the West. My wild card teams were the Packers, the Bears, and the Cowboys.
Yeah, but pretty close. So yeah, we'll stick with our prediction. I don't have a problem putting the Eagles in. Now, I will tell
Neither
you
one
that
of us had the Vikings in the playoffs at all in the NFC.
I know, because we thought Sam Darnold was going to be the quarterback. How could you do that? You know what I mean? Like, but they could go to this. They could absolutely go to the Super Bowl.
Neither one of us we didn't have the Rams either in the playoffs in the NFC.
Yeah, that one makes a little more sense to me. They were losing some guys. We didn't know about the health of players. We didn't know when Puka would be back and all these things. I will say this about the Vikings, because I could absolutely see them reaching it. I think what happened in Week 18 was more of a one-off than a trend. I think they're going to be much better. I think the Lions flat had the perfect game plan for them, and you can probably toss that one to the side. That Rams-Vikings game, you could be watching the Super Bowl representative there for sure. No matter who wins that game. I cannot wait for that game, and it's coming on Monday night, but that one to me is the real awesome game of the first round. But yeah, I'll stick with, so you got Chiefs Lions, I'll stick with Chiefs Eagles. Just I hope that doesn't happen, because I would love to see the Eagles not make it. But I'll stick with it. We'll go with that. Sure, why not? Feel pretty good about that, and as you should for Chiefs Lions, because they're the 2 favorites. All right, stick around. We got more Sports Daily coming your way. It's been fun. KU the big win over Arizona State. We'll dig deep into that. It's Albrock and Caster. Here we go.
66 counties, 4 regions, and 1 weather team that you can trust. Find Storm Team 12